All right, Nick, let's talk about the Dallas Cowboys. New coaching staff always means some new changes with the team. And I think the latest news out of Dallas is going to be very intriguing. I think Cowboys fans are going to love this. We're going to get into all of those details here in just a moment. But before we do, I'm Andrew, and this is Saturday Morning Inspection. All right, Nick, let's jump right on into it. Some interesting changes out of Dallas. We'll get into the article and we can talk more about it on the other side. This, of course, is from over on the Dallas Morning News. It says, what happens if the Cowboys don't expend a top pick on a lineman who can step in and start from day one? Between Hoffman and Beebe, can they get the job done at center and guard? Jones asked rhetorically. Yeah, I think they're great answers. How the coaching staff will play them remains to be seen. Jones didn't expound upon, but he says his answer suggests that head coach Brian Schottenheimer and his staff would consider shifting Beebe back to guard where he played in college under new offensive line coach Connor Riley and use Hoffman at center. I think that's really interesting, but there's a little bit more to unpack here as well. Furthermore, over on X at Brandon Laurie says, based off Stephen Jones' comments, it sounds like the Cowboys won't have a competition at right tackle, and they believe Terrence Steele can excel under Clayton Adams and Connor Riley. So maybe a switch up at center, at guard, and no switch up at the right tackle position with Steele. It sounds like the Cowboys are trying to get this offensive line underway. Nick, I know you got some thoughts on this. Curious to hear what you think, but before we get to you, Cowboys fans, in the comment section below. I know if we've read comments, we've seen Cowboys fans kind of agree they like a lot of the guys on this offensive line. With this new configuration of the line, do you think the Cowboys need to really spring and go get an early offensive lineman in the draft or through free agency? Or can this configuration of the line be good enough to compete? Let us know what your thoughts are on the current status of this offensive line in the comments section below. But nonetheless, Nick, what do you think about the new plans for the Cowboys offensive line?
So you talk about really smart moves from this new coaching staff. That's off to a great start. Let's give credit where credit is due. These guys are coming in and making the right decisions. The whole strategy, at least the way it's been publicly described, and it just makes sense, is they want to come in and run the football, be physical, be nasty, work some play action off of that. Terrence Steele, if you look at his performance, whether you the eye test or just breaking down his film or PFF, it all says the same thing. He is a far better run blocker at the right tackle position than a pass blocker. Now, there was a chance for maybe Terrence Steele to get cut to free up some cap space. That was one avenue the Cowboys could go. They've got a million different ways to open up cap space. They've got a lot of flexibility, a lot of different ways they could go about it. But that was one option. Like, listen, do we move off of Terrence Steele? And the only way you would move off of Steele if you said, listen, we actually don't want to be a running football team. That's something I was looking forward to seeing. Would the Cowboys' new staff really lean into Terrence Steele? If not, then maybe it was a sign they weren't going to run the football very much and it was all talk. All reports now are an indication that they are going to be an aggressive downhill running team, which means you better believe Hoffman has to be involved. Brock Hoffman's a mauler. He's a nasty dude. Perfect kind of beast you want to have, just an irritant. He's not great technical, right? His performance doesn't grade out perfectly, but he's just a nasty guy that loves imposing his will on defenses. He's a great watch. And of course, BB, he was a great, phenomenal guard at the college level. Of course, now he's working with his former college coach. I think it almost makes sense to put him back at the guard position and have Hoffman move over to center. Keep Terrence Steele at right tackle, let him do what he does best and blow people off the football. This is just smart decisions by the Cowboys' new coaching staff. And none of this is rocket science, right? But one of the things, and look, Jimmy Johnson actually said this once, one of the ways you can succeed in the NFL is just to step back and let other dumb teams screw it up for themselves and you can take advantage of it, right? I'm butchering the quote. That's essentially what he said. And the Dallas Cowboys, for the better part of the last couple of decades, were one of those teams that just seem to get in their own way and just do dumb stuff sometimes, right? And we see the Cowboys, this new leadership in terms of the coaching staff, doing smart moves. They want to come out and run the football, be a physical football team. Okay, let's get our three best run blocking physical dudes to replace Zach Martin. Let's put Cooper Beebe in a position where he was in college as a dominating run blocker off of center. He's a good center, bright future, but maybe move him off of center. go back to what he does best and let Terrence Steele be a great run blocker, not worry so much about his pass protection. Again, smart moves by the new Cowboy staff. This is one of the reasons why you bring these guys in, new ways of thinking, new approaches. This is a critical component. Again, why they let Mike McCarthy go when they brought in Schottenheimer, then Schottenheimer hired the guys he did. They didn't want a redux. They wanted a new way of thinking, a new approach, and we're seeing it right now with the Cowboys' decision making. And once again, a lot of reason to be optimistic, Cowboys fans. Look, the offseason, a lot of free agency still to go, right? Draft, mini camps, OTAs, and then training camp. There's a lot of ways this can go wrong very quickly. But up to this point, solid signs of momentum with the Dallas Cowboys.
And like I said, this is all you can do right now. These are the only things that you can analyze. And like you said, it can go wrong, but there's no signs pointing to it. All the signs are pointing to everything going the right way. We talked about it just a couple days ago about the running back position, the decisions they made there, getting Rico Dowdle, who can essentially copy the performance of a guy like Pollard for 20 something million dollars less that year. I think that was a smart move. I think getting a better run blocking orientation on this offensive line is going to be a smart move. I think if you can bring Dowdle back for a good budget price, I think that could be a smart move. I think they're doing a lot of really smart things. There's been, I think there's a lot of options. We talked about even further back, just in the draft. There's great running backs you can get in the third round for this team. This is a very running back heavy and wide receiver heavy draft. There's a lot of deep talent here. I think early on, you can get some great players for this team. So I think everything is planning out. The Cowboys are kind of configuring the team around what's available to them. Hey, what's available in the draft? What's available in free agency? How should we configure this team? I think it's a really genius idea so far. I think they're making a lot of really smart, sound decisions. They're not betting on anything too crazy. They're just looking at the information in front of them and saying, hey, this seems to make the most sense. Let's move in this direction. Let's not try to force it. Let's move. Let's get our best run blockers out on the field. Let's focus on the running game. Let's do those kind of decision makings. And I think this is great news for Cowboys fans who aren't used to this kind of decision making, aren't used to this kind of, common sense approach to the football game. I'm excited for it. And I think Cowboys fans should be excited for it as well.
And just something to end on here, as Zach Martin, who is now retired, he's going to go to the Hall of Fame. We all understand that. Towards the last few seasons of his career, his run blocking was the first thing to go. In fact, going back to 2022, his run blocking grade was 63.7. In 2021, it was 92.5. So he went from being a top 2 run blocker to basically a little below average. And that trend continued the rest of his career. Pass blocking lasted a little bit longer until the injuries unfortunately did him in last season. The reality is this is sort of the Ewing effect, the old Ewing effect. Talk about the New York Knicks in the 90s. Zach Martin is so good and was so good for so long that the Cowboys just were forced to work around his limitations as he got older during the injuries. Now that he's retired, they're able to actually focus directly on their strategic goals here about running the football and being physical and tough and not having to worry about any player's limitations. This is going to be a great opportunity for the Cowboys and this new staff. If they can figure out the right configuration of this offensive line, center, right guard, right tackle, looks like Steele at right tackle, up to see what happens between the center and the right guard position, they'll be set up for a really strong downhill running game because we know Tyler Smith is a beast. He'll have a great season. He's had a great career up to this point. You got to love the moves the Cowboys are making right now. Again, it's just smart football, good X's and O's. First time in a long time we're seeing it out of Dallas.